If you're a customer of Betfair and you put money on Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States, I'm going to do 3 things for you. I'm going to show you how to sue them over the course of a few videos. This is the first one. I'm going to show you how to sue them even if Donald Trump loses. And then along the way, I'm also going to dispel some illusions about the kind of market we're in, the kind of situation everybody is in the wake of that decision by Betfair. So, first illusion. This is not just a bet on Trump if you put money on Trump. This is different from going into a bookie. Betfair is not a bookie in that sense. Betfair is an exchange market. And so if you bought Donald Trump at 25 to 1, let's say, what you got there was a token which you could trade in a market. And if the price, say, had dropped, and it did during one of the falls, dropped to 11.5 to 1, you might well decide at that moment that it's time to cash your bet out. And so, subsequently, whether Donald Trump gets elected president of the United States or not is no concern of yours. Because perhaps you weren't even interested. It would have been a valid bet to have felt that Donald Trump would lose, right? But nevertheless have understood the market dynamics like this, that if you can buy when the price of that token in the market, which is like a share in a stock market, if you can buy that share when its price is 33 to 1, or even some people did 38 to 1, and then you can sell that share, in inverted commas, by cashing out at 11.5 to 1, you've made so much money you could really care less whether Donald Trump wins or not. I'm exaggerating, of course, but you see what we're talking about here. We're not talking about a static market. We are talking about a dynamic market like a stock exchange, and when you bought your token for Donald Trump on Betfair, that token entitled you to play in that market until such time as it was settled. And I believe your legal right here was that you had a legal, reasonable expectation that that market would continue without settlement until such time as a definitively conclusive result was obtained. In fact, the achievement of an official result is part of the rules under which turf club and betting operations work. In other words, there's a difference between first past the post and weigh-in result. Some bookmakers offer first past the post. What does that mean? It means that it doesn't matter if subsequently your horse, which came first, turns out to be disqualified for some reason, right? Steward's inquiry or problem with the weigh-in. Because the bookmaker is saying to you, look, you don't have to wait around for that. As a convenience to you, I'm prepared to offer you your bet as a win, even if that horse is subsequently disqualified. So that's an explicit offer to bypass the time that you wait for settlement. But without that explicit offer to bypass, the general expectation is that bets continue until a conclusive outcome is achieved. And I believe that the advices that Betfair have relied upon are contradictory. They are illogical. This is the advice they gave to clients and they stated in their terms, etc. They are a legal mush. They are incoherent and they cannot in any way be binding. They are so at variance in so many different ways at different times that they are literally incomprehensible as a legal basis for determining what happens here. And so we will have to turn to earlier basis. And I'm going in particular to refer you to this. This is the US election Betfair market settlement scenarios issued by Betfair themselves as a company on the 2nd of November. It's a 2.30 minute read. We won't do it all, but we're going to go through the scenarios they lay out. It could be settled Tuesday, on the night. It could be settled Wednesday or Thursday. There could be a contested result. And they say, there's no clear way to give a clear view of settlement time in advance in this case. Right? So we can't quite. But, they say, these market rules will apply. Now, this is 2nd of November, bear in mind. This is before the election. And so it gives us a clear guidance from the firm as to the manner in which it will act. And I think we can rely upon that guidance, especially as it comes before anyone had an idea of what the actual result is going to be, which might alter the motivations of all players involved, including Betfair. So this is an unencumbered statement by them. And they say these market rules will apply. If there's any material change to the established role or any ambiguity as to who occupies the position, then Betfair may determine, using its reasonable discretion, how to settle the market based on all the information available to it at the relevant time. And the key thing there is the use of the words reasonable discretion. Now, Betfair is rather fond of claiming in its many statements, in its terms, conditions and rules, etc., which you have to go looking for, by the way, and that's another legal point, but they have a tendency to claim absolute discretion. They will say that, look, when we settle these markets, that's just up to us. But this statement moves them away from that absolute discretion. And I think this legally binds them to reasonable discretion as to how to settle the market. And so, is it reasonable, therefore, what they did? We look at the expectations of others, but does it pass a reasonableness test? Well, it's very reasonable if you are someone who has backed Joe Biden because you're going to get all your money, which is great for them. However, how does it affect the rights of those who are currently backing Donald Trump? Well, it terminates their ability to exit the bet at a time of their own choosing and price of their own choosing based on their reasonable expectation of how long the bet would continue. And I think that people who put money on subsequent to the election have the same entitlement as is given to them under that 2nd of November statement by Betfair. They're entitled to reasonableness in terms of the settlement. So the disadvantage to them is that it prevents them from doing that exit. The other disadvantage is it forever robs them of their opportunity to win this bet, despite the fact that there are grounds of reasonableness that need to be met. Let's have a look at some more of this. Briefly now, because we're moving on. But this is from Betfair's own publication, About Us, Rules and Regulations, Results and Market Settlement. And it has the general statement with regard to markets and how they will be settled. Okay? So we can rely upon this, and I think we have to rely upon it. I'm saying that there are just so many instances, and I know that many of you who are watching have archived screenshot proof of your interactions with people in Betfair to substantiate this, that Betfair were so contradictory and incoherent legally in the attempts they made to caveat this next president thing with some kind of preemptive point of electoral college results and all this. This is nonsense. To use, even for example, to use projected electoral college votes. A projection is a guess as to what will happen in the future. That's not something you can use as a legal basis for anything. It has no legal basis. A projection by definition can't have a legal basis. So all of that is rubbish, and we must go back to the general rules which come from Betfair themselves. These are straight from their website. And the general rules in terms of settling markets is that where market information or specific sports rules do not specify how and on what basis a market will be settled, I'm saying they don't because they are incoherent. Markets will be settled on the official result of the relevant governing body, regardless of any subsequent disqualification or amendment to the result. They go on there. But you see the key point there, that it's the official result of the relevant governing body in regard to settling the market. And we await the official result of the relevant governing body in the case of the election of Donald Trump. We await it in this sense, that it is the Chief Justice of the United States who swears in the president. And that proffer by the Chief Justice, offer to the president, would you like to be president? And if you do, will you say these words after me? That is the point where the relevant governing body in the person of the Chief Justice of the United States makes the determination of what the official result is. Anything else is premature to that. And then they go on, this is in their own terms and conditions, general terms of markets. If no official result of a relevant governing body is available, the result will be determined by BETFAIR acting reasonably, again, using information from independent sources. So I'm saying that what they did was unreasonable. Let's just take a look at a little more now. Just to prove the sheer incoherence and incompetence of BETFAIR's statements. And here's something from one of their statements. We currently anticipate that we will wait until the outcome of the Electoral College votes on 14th of December 2020 is known before we settle the markets. Let's just look into that. What they were trying and perhaps meant to say, if we assume they're acting in good faith, is that they anticipate they will wait until the outcome of the Electoral College voting on 14th of December is known. Until the outcome of the Electoral College voting on 14th of December 2020 is known. But that's not what they said. They actually said, we anticipate we will wait until the outcome of the Electoral College votes on 14th of December. So when does that outcome become known? 6th of January or subsequently is when it becomes known. So they couldn't even get it right in this simple statement there, where they should have said Electoral College voting, if that's what they meant. But instead, the direction they gave to people was Electoral College votes. This is incompetence beyond belief, and therefore none of us can be bound by that. Now let's look at stuff that moves us from sheer incompetence to actually deceptive behavior and practice, as we look at some more stuff from, and I don't know who took this scan. You probably do, because you know it. They took this out at the last minute. Scam is the claim here. And so the claim is that if you see that next president there, which is highlighted, and let's just zoom on this a little bit so we can get a better look at it for everybody, right? So you see that the claim here is that the words USA Presidential Election 2020 next president were altered subsequently. Next president down below here, there are tabs. Next president, winning party, popular vote, gender of next president, more. So the general area you're in is USA Presidential Election 2020, and the specific tab you're in is in the next president tab. And the allegation is that that next president thing was removed out of the upper descriptor, so that when you clicked on next president, it just said USA Presidential Election 2020 without the words next president. Can you confirm that? If you have screenshots before and after of what appears above when you show that, then that could be interesting, because that would be a deliberate attempt to mislead. Yeah, but that's not substantiated, that's a claim. And if we can verify that there are differences in how that was presented. The other thing that's interesting to look at there is where the rules information is placed, right? So I'll zoom back down, and rules is quite small. And as we zoom in, you're going to see it. Okay, so there it is. There's rules, right? Now, how does that affect our legal rights? Well, it affects the legal rights based on the fact that you have to offer in a way that's not deceptive or misleading. When you offer anything, whether it's a product, whether it's a bicycle, whether it's a bet. So perhaps they weren't. Look. For example, if you bought this thinking it was 100% beef, well, that would actually be deception, because if you look closely, some asses are being covered here in a deceptive way, because when you zoom in, you see it's 100% artificial beef. Get it? And so there is no difference between doing that and doing this. having something that says USA presidential election 2020 next president, and then having this tiny little thing here that you have to zoom into to see rules, to find out that it's not actually about next president at all. It's about electoral college votes and 12th amendments and all sorts of other stuff. So this is part, again, of the legal basis upon which you claim, on the basis that the offer must be clear and must not mislead. And it did in this case. So the implications of all that is that it's time for everybody who put money on Trump in Betfair, and this applies only to Betfair because of its market dynamics, it's time to get our asses in gear. It's time for those who are interested in participating in legal action in order to enforce our rights here to act, because we do not have to wait for an outcome to this election in order to act. The injury has been done. You can't take an action until an injury is done. The injury's been done, the bet's been declared lost. Furthermore, the market aspects are also an injury. And therefore, even with a defeat of Trump, those who had money on Trump had a right and a reasonable expectation to be able to profit from any fall that might take place in the price. And particularly now, if we see successful attempts by Trump lawyers to challenge these electoral college votes, have them set aside or whatever legally, then that would, had this market been open, have impacted the price in such a way as that people could have cashed out and made a return and not even waited for the final outcome. So because of the fact that they've removed this ability from all those who were participating in the market, and because they are bound by reasonableness and it was unreasonable what they did, the unreasonability also extends to the issue of their fiduciary duty to the shareholders of Betfair. I'm going to just focus for a moment on this because it also has legal and potential negligent legal aspects to it. Had Betfair not done anything except wait, what would the loss have been to their shareholders? I can't see any potential exposure to the shareholders had they decided to wait. And considering that the exposure would be so large, because this is the largest gamble on Betfair in the political arena, it's unheralded, 1.85 billion. And so, to safeguard the interests of shareholders, the first responsibility was not to act in a way that would expose the firm to legal action for huge sums that would be 10 times in excess of the profits they could achieve by their commissions. Minimum. So they didn't do that, however. They moved to deprive those who were in the market on the Trump side of all of their rights. And they did so. That was unreasonable, and we can't sustain that. So it's time to take action. There's no reason to delay any further. Betfair need to be put on notice now. We need discovery. We need legal action now. The injury's done. The market deprivation is real. The outcome does not affect that aspect of a legal suit. So you have two potential basis upon which to sue. Obviously, the one which gives you, if Trump is successful, then the amount of your legal payout would be the maximum value of your bet at the odds at which you backed. If Trump were to lose, then you could certainly ask for a proper assessment of what your potential winnings would have been on a cash-out basis or other basis. Now, we do have to consider as well whether it's appropriate to enter the independent betting adjudication service process. I'm still awaiting information back from them. Here's the email I sent. Dear team, I refer to your rules of proceedings as follows. Section 2, IBAS shall only adjudicate on disputes when C, the dispute is not the subject of any court action unless referred to IBAS. by a court. I would like you to clarify if persons who avail of IBAS resolution are bound to that process until it ends in a decision before they can proceed to legal action. You see, so you don't want to be, oh, well, if you now go to legal action, then that will terminate your IBAS resolution attempt. So it seems that starting a legal action while in IBAS resolution would terminate the process. But there's also some contradiction, because it also seems this only applies to claims less than 10,000, and that concurrent legal action and resolution is possible if the claim is over 10,000, because they speak about a right to also, they say, also have court action for claims over 10,000. But whether that is concurrent with your resolution process is left unclear. In any event, can I say, I don't think that IBAS on their current structures is a suitable structure to rule individually on a whole host of individual complaints. I appreciate the publication by IBAS in recent days, which did affirm, I think, our right to an official result being the basis of the bet settlement. I think that came across. But otherwise, they've sat on the fence. They need to stop sitting on the fence here, and they need to look closely at what we have put to them. And I think they need to consider to take a bulk action in relation to this, rather than rely on individual claimants to come forward. That's administratively going to take forever, and we need a sample case upon which they will rule, if perhaps that would be the way to go with this. But we need clarity there, and we need, in any event, I think, to get ready for legal action and to prepare for legal action, to brief people legally. I hope what I've done here now has set out some of the fundamental legal principles, and I've mainly aimed this at persons in the legal profession who may not appreciate the betting aspects of this and the dynamics of what went on. You will find ample detail on this, but I've just concentrated on overview that might help inform solicitors and barristers who are considering involvement in this issue. And I hope that has helped. I'm not a legal expert, but I am a computer guy, programmer and software guy going back to Apple so long ago I can't even remember. And therefore, I suppose software and programming is a structure of logic, and law is a structure of logic as well. Logic and reasonableness should be the guides that guide all actions in law and in programming. So I've made a good go at this in terms of laying out the legal actions. But what I'm going to do in subsequent videos now is to flesh that out with whatever legal advice and input that I can get. And if you would like to contact me, you can contact me at Fintan, Fintan, at fintandunne.com. FINTANDUNNE.com, or you can just go to fintandunne.com and use the contact form there if you'd like to use that method instead of getting in touch. So we're going to proceed on this. This is part 1 of how to sue Betfair over these Trump bets, and I hope that part 2 will have some real legal input into it to flesh out and nail down some of the issues that I've raised there. But I want you to take one message away from this, that if you put money on Trump, regardless of outcome, you are entitled to compensation for the injury you sustained by the unreasonable and unprecedented closure of that market in the way it was closed by a company who did exactly this same thing in 2016 when they prematurely paid out Clinton backers against Trump. Now, they had to compensate those on the other side of that bet. They had to compensate their Trump players with their winnings, and this cost them a lot of money. It was a mistake they made before. And so I think that only compounds the unreasonableness of all this, not just to the people who are in the market like yourself, but also to the shareholders who have been exposed hugely at no benefit to the firm. This has been a calamity. This has been a legal catastrophe for Betfair. And I don't know who their lawyers are, but I suggest they need some new ones. And they better get good ones, because I think we're coming for them. And it's time to sit down and thrash this out, hopefully not in court, and achieve a resolution. And I hope that all parties who are interested in achieving that resolution, without even perhaps the need for court action, will now seriously take this matter to hand, and let's see how we can resolve this to the satisfaction of all parties as quickly as possible. I'll be back with more on this, and I do hope you can join me for that. But in the meantime, this has been Fintan Dunn reporting.